people are always going to judge you. This video is for the woman who has realized you've overcommitted, you overgive, you're exhausted, you've been juggling all the things, and you have started to shift the way you think about how you show up, because you have realized that when you're exhausted and tired, you are not being the compassionate, patient, loving woman, mother, partner, daughter, colleague that you want to be. You find that you don't have the patience that you used to have. You find that you're too tired to enjoy life. And yesterday in Catalyst Recalibrated, there was a conversation that was started. And this is not the first time I've had this conversation with someone where a woman, and this happens to men too, but I'm specifically speaking to women here because of the generational expectations and bias that we don't realize we quietly absorb as the minimum standard to be a good person, a good mother, a good wife, a good employee, a successful person. So I have a past podcast episode. It's episode 218. It's called It's Always the Nice Ones, that talks about what happens to us when we go for decades and we never do anything about this. But that's not what this is about. This is about how we begin to judge ourselves once we start to make changes. Now, most people out there, they hear something, they watch something, and they immediately go into black or white thinking. It's all or none. And there are scenarios where it's both and. There are times when two things can be true at the same time. And there are times when none of it is actually true and it doesn't apply to you. So if you find anything that I say triggering you, then I strongly encourage you to explore what about this is triggering me. Because there might be a story there, or maybe it doesn't apply to you at all. So we had this conversation yesterday. And then today, I was over on Instagram uploading some content, and I came across a carousel that laid out something very similar, but it laid out how we pick up generational patterns as women. It's quiet conditioning. It's, in some cases, it's even brainwashing, but in general, it's quiet conditioning of, we see how the people around us live their lives in the world, and we incorporate that into who we be and how we do subconsciously. It's totally unconscious. We just assume this is the way that the world works. And so this person had posted a carousel around a woman that woke up one day and realized, well, she didn't wake up. She woke up mentally. And she realized that when she's spending 3 days preparing Thanksgiving dinner, that when she doesn't give herself permission to sit and eat, when she serves everybody first, and by the time she actually gets to sit down from taking care of everything, what's left is the mashed potatoes, and the mashed potatoes are cold. She realized and said, you know what? I'm going to go get fresh food. And she went and got fresh food and heated the food and had hot food. The post wasn't saying that anybody else sitting at the table had done anything wrong. It was talking about how she didn't realize that she had quietly assumed the role of having to put herself last in order to be doing it right. In the comments in that carousel from the men, but most abhorrently from the women, calling her selfish because from that moment forward, whenever they would have meals, she would also fix her plate and sit down. She didn't serve people anymore. She used to serve people. She would sit down and eat when the rest of the family ate. She didn't have to put herself on the back burner. And I just want to give you an example of some of these comments because we're going to dig into this. This is so sad. Replacing love with selfishness is what's ruining this generation. Sacrificing yourself is not love. It is not now and will not ever be. Now, sometimes we're in a scenario where it is the right and appropriate thing to do to take care of someone else's needs first. But when you are in a room full of adults, sacrificing yourself is not love. So this person who made that comment, they are carrying a story that by putting everyone else first and you waiting till last and taking care of yourself last, they're carrying the story that is love. And that's not love. You know, in some people, that may be the way that they want to show love. They might think it's right, but it still does not make it love. But in a situation where people need assistance, making sure other people are taken care of is important. So both, and it might not apply to you at all. But if you're sitting and you're last, that is a problem. Somebody else is like, I make it and I eat the whole time while I'm cooking. By the time dinner's done, I'm already full. Some people won't sit down to eat until all the dishes are already washed and the kitchen is clean. That's what my mother would do. I never did that. I'm going to eat while it's hot. Yes, everybody's getting their food and sitting down. I don't sit and eat before anybody else, but the dishes will get done afterwards. I'm not going to do dishes and clean a kitchen while food gets cold, but that's what my mother always did. And when she would come to our house to visit, she would get so upset because it didn't sit right in her soul that you sit down to eat before the kitchen is clean. And so we would have a rule. We would sit there. If she ended up cooking for us, we would sit there and none of us would touch a bite, not one crumb of food between me, my husband, and our children. Not one crumb of food went out in our mouth until she'd sat down to eat. If she insisted on her food being cold to eat it, our food was going to be cold. But some of the comments are saying that she doesn't respect her family by not serving her family first. It's really interesting how we end up in this place where these stories dictate who we are. But here's the thing that is so important. For a lot of people, when they have this wake up moment of, oh my God, I'm overcommitted. Oh my God, I'm doing everything. Oh my gosh, why is my husband sitting playing video games when he comes home and I'm the one chasing the kids, doing homework, trying to fix dinner, and I worked all day too? Why is that? So then when you start to make a change and say, hey, could you help me out here? Could you take care of the kids while I get dinner? Or do you mind heating up the grill and cooking the chicken while I do this? And now there's pushback. There's this pushback. Well, why can't you do it? I don't understand. Or it just totally gets ignored and it doesn't get done because you've always done it. So if I don't do it, you're still going to do it anyway. And then that becomes a problem for the other person. The other person gets triggered because all this time you have been just happy-go-lucky with the status quo. What's changed now? Why do I have to get up and do this now? And what happens is, in some relationships, and again, this is not all relationships, I realize I'm going to be triggering the out of some of you. When we go into a relationship, when we meet somebody and we decide to stay with somebody, we're in a relationship with the person we met. And it's important that both people grow. And sometimes both people don't grow. And then one person realizes, this isn't serving me. I am unhappy. That's the other thing. Go listen to It's Always the Nice Ones. When we always sacrifice our needs, wants, and desires but we're giving everybody around us permission to have their needs, wants, and desires fulfilled. It creates a huge disconnect in our nervous system. We may gaslight ourselves and tell ourselves we're doing the right thing and the loving thing, but inside we know. Inside we definitely know. And so when we wake up and we start changing things, we start changing who we be, we start asking for help, we start asking for support. We want to allow ourselves to receive. We want to be spoken to differently. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you just become more open-minded and you're less of a people pleaser and you're no longer quiet. You're starting to just speak up in general. The other person gets triggered. And they don't like that because it was very convenient for them, be it a business partner, a colleague, a parent, a child, or a spouse, romantic partner. Now that you're speaking up, now it's inconvenient for them. It's inconvenient that them being in their perfect bubble, it isn't enough for you. Like they want everything catered to them, which people will say, well, why can't the person just be what it was? I mean, if this person over here is happy in their little world, why can't you be happy in your little world? Well, if your little world involves catering to the other person all the time, that's a problem. That's a problem. So what will happen is these people will become triggered and they're going to push back on what you believe. They're going to push back on you standing up for yourself. They're going to push back on you speaking up. You will get gaslit by these people. They will blame you. You were the problem, even though everything is a two-way street. Relationships are 100% in both directions, or they should be. Many are not. When I grew up, I still saw women in my life that their life revolved around taking care of the man in their life. And I love taking care of my husband, but I don't caretake his feelings. It's a different dynamic. So people say 50 shades of gray. There are 1,000 shades of gray. We think there's black and white, but there is no black and white. It's all shades of gray. So what I see women do time and again, and it happened just last night in the conversation where we start talking about this and we're unpacking it and tell me, what are you feeling right now? That's what I'll ask. What are you feeling right now? And they'll be upset or sad, or they feel guilty. And if they feel guilty, I call, why are you feeling guilty? Were you harsh? Did you ask for something that's unreasonable? Were you being malicious? Did you unexpectedly change plans? Just really look at it. What did you do? Sometimes a simple ask of, can we adjust this a little bit? Or, could we do this differently? It's not a command. It's not a directive. It's not I expect you to change to make me happy. It's an attempt to open a door to a conversation to see if there's something that helps both people be equally or as close to equally mutually satisfied as the other. And it's met with accusations and challenges and name calling and sometimes even cussing someone out. The mental and emotional abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. You may not see bruises or broken bones or anything like that, but it's just as detrimental. Now, yes, physical abuse can end in loss of life, and I'm not putting that in the same category, but what I'm saying is, if we look at that mental and emotional abuse, that degradation of ourselves, and we tell ourselves, at least I didn't get hit, at least I didn't get shoved, or we go into, well, I thought I was being nice, but he said, or but she said. I was doing my best to say it nice, but he said, but she said. If you know in your heart of hearts and you know to your bones that you were very well intentioned. You did not do something that actually hurt someone. Maybe it was an inconvenience to have a conversation, but you didn't do anything to hurt someone. Then do not gaslight yourself. Do not gaslight yourself when you know to your bones that you did your very best and you weren't doing anything to hurt someone. If somebody comes back at you with those harsh words, with those unkind, those cruel words, because they were triggered, do not gaslight yourself and say, he said I was this or she said I was that. Because what you're doing is you're eroding your own self-trust when you do that. You are gaslighting yourself, and you're gaslighting yourself with something that is someone else's perspective, that is based on their past experiences, that most likely have nothing to do with you. Our lens, our filter on life, it starts being built from the time we're born. And in some of my clients, their frame of reference for reality as to whether or not they're safe or secure, it starts in the womb, explicitly in the womb. And they say explicit memory doesn't begin before 3 years old. I have worked with enough clients, I can tell you that is not a black and white thing. It's absolutely not cut and dried what people can recall. But those little moments, they form our lens of perception as to what is safe and secure, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And when we're working on building our self-belief, when we're working on building our confidence and standing up for ourselves and speaking up and allowing ourselves to finally do something in our life that feels good and right for us, the last thing that you want to do is doubt yourself and take someone else's story and gaslight yourself with their story. It's, in all fairness, it's just like I did this earlier with my husband today. I walked in and I said, you know what? I need you to be a sounding board for me a minute. And I want you to tell me, am I wrong in my perspective, or is there something I'm not seeing that you can point out to me? And I ran down the scenario with him, and he's like, no, I think this and I think that, and I think you're absolutely right. And I'm like, good, there's nothing wrong with running something past someone else and saying, I need a different perspective here. Did I overreact? Was this wrong? Was there something I missed? Was this wrong to do this? And if you do that and that person says, no, you were absolutely right, but then you go into the story of the way you were treated by someone else. Yeah, but they said, that's a sign that you're not trusting yourself, that you did the right thing. So it's so important to lean in and to trust yourself. You've got to lean in and trust yourself. And when this is new to you, when you're new in this process of creating this new identity of someone who speaks up for herself or himself, when you're someone who allows yourself to receive, maybe you allow yourself to receive a day off, maybe allow yourself to receive in the sense that you ask for help and let someone else take care of something instead of you piling it all on yourself. That's a new model of reality that you're building for yourself. So you don't have a lot of evidence at first that it's safe. You don't have a lot of evidence that it's going to work out. And I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes it does not work out. Sometimes if you go through the process of self-growth and self-development, if one person is changing a lot and the other person is not, then we come to a crossroads. And it's, am I willing to sacrifice my happiness to keep the status quo? Or am I willing to release so that I can be who I'm here fully meant to be? from a spiritual perspective, some people are only meant to be in our lives for a period of time. And then once we hit a growth point, we're no longer resonant. And that becomes difficult for people. Not everybody that we get into a relationship with, be it a friendship or a romantic partnership, not everyone is meant to be in our life forever. We've all had friends where we went through seasons of being with friends with someone, and then it just gradually fell away. It wasn't aligned anymore. Now let's take, for example, you're going through this change, it gets really uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, instead of being confident and speaking up for yourself, all of a sudden you revert back to being quiet, to caretaking, to people pleasing. In hypnosis, in psychology, and I first heard of this when I first started hypnosis, I was working with pain patients, but it's true for anything. When we revert back to avoid the pain of the change, which change really isn't painful, it's the pain of outgrowing who we were. It's the difficulty of the ego death that comes as we grow as a person. We outgrow the old identity. When people don't grow with us, when situations don't expand with us, we go through a bit of an ego death. For some people, that ego death is inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, they don't have the support to embody the change. So what they do is they revert back to the previous way of being, and we call that secondary gain. They're no longer people pleasing because they needed to avoid unpleasant situations. They go back to people pleasing because they simply don't want to hear it. They just simply don't want to hear it. You would see this with people really commonly who lose weight. People start losing weight, they're exercising, they're getting fit, they love their partner to pieces, but then their partner starts going, wow, you're losing a lot of weight. I feel like you're leaving me. What's happening here? Is there somewhere else? And they just get so tired of hearing that because they love the person, but the other person hasn't done their own internal healing. So no matter how much they tell the other person, I love you. No, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere else. I just want to be in better shape. It's easier to just stop and be overweight, because wanting to do it for just themselves isn't enough to move past all of the other. So please, please, please don't gaslight yourself with the stories of the person who can't handle yourself changing. Don't question yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Don't make yourself believe that whatever their unprocessed, unhealed garbage is that's coming out of them is somehow your fault, because it's not. I'm going to leave the details below for Catalyst Recalibrated. It is a space where women come to embody themselves in a way that they can speak up, that they're manifesting, they're co-creating what they want in life. And they're making these changes to let go of the self-doubt and build the self-love and the self-trust so they can be the most aligned and fulfilled version of themselves. So I'll leave that below. Leave your comments. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and go follow me on social. I'm over on the gram at penny.chiasson. Would love to see you there. Bye now.